highlight of my day is getting to share an update of what my little grand boy looks like today. Linda has been indulged me also in making sure that we get to see all the update pictures as Harlow's getting older, who I know this. I have to just tell you, we have the treat of the OSPI doing a Halloween get together where kids can come and participate, and so he's been able to come every year since he was a baby. And then this is not how he wears his hair. This is his mad scientist costume, and so that's why he looks a little crazy. But we love having the kiddos come into our office and be part of our little FEPP family, and he doesn't even know what's about to hit him next month with a baby brother coming into the house. I'll give you the quick update on the grants. We're seeing quite an uptick in support from the districts that are applying for the grants. We've got about 2 more weeks of the applications being opened, and that gives us time to get them approved. And then that gives the districts actually around 6 months to actually implement and do the work. Now, implementation is going to look different between every district. We're seeing it a little bit all over the place. But I'm also pleasantly surprised with this being our third year of the grant support. We're really getting a lot of wind underneath us on how we can uniquely support the districts. And that has just probably been the most fun for our team is to see these creative ways where districts are finding ways to implement financial education, creative ways they're using this opportunity for grant funding, and then creative ways that we're helping support the professional development, which is always one of the highest priorities, and then how that goes into implementation into classrooms and ultimately affects our students. Um, the financial education standards, I'll give you just a brief update. Right now, the standards, if hopefully you've been able to get the report from our bulletins that we send out on Fridays, and we were able to send out on behalf of OSPI that they have now been released for public comment. So those of you who've just been sitting every month waiting to be able to read financial education standards, your dream has come true today. So we will make sure that at some point the chat has the link in there, but also we'll send it out. We'll keep continuing to send out the link within our bulletin. So make sure you're always opening that bulletin to look for those little Easter eggs in there. And then it goes through the middle of February, and then that we have some time to respond to any of the public comment, and we'll keep working with OSPI to see what that actually looks like for that next phase. Just briefly, we've had a lot of opportunities to do the traveling and keep spreading all the good work that FEPP is doing across the nation. We have supporting districts. Like I said, Amy was able to go and work with Everett School District on their K-5 implementation of financial education, largely through those children's library opportunities, the children's literacy. It's becoming very, very, very popular. We also were invited to present at the Council for Economic Education conference in New Orleans. Amy did such a wonderful job presenting those library books again, our library shelves, after a hard several months of updating them to make sure that the books are still in circulation and that we've got the resource pages that are accurate to go along with them. And they've just largely been popular, and now it's spreading across the nation as well. I've been able to be proud of the work that we're doing with the state treasurer's office. We've attended multiple opportunities to meet with the superintendents of the ESDs, but also the district superintendents, really get an understanding of where their concerns are with any new graduation requirement or implementation, but also able to show them what we're able to do and what we've already got into place for support. So I really want to take a minute to thank the state treasurer's office and the staff there of including us in those opportunities, and we'll just keep chipping away at it little by little. And then just some other opportunities to attend district events to support students. We were able to work with DECA to go with the reality fair with WSECU, and then Lance did some judging at the DECA conference. And so just kind of sprinkling ourselves a little bit all over the state and all over the nation, actually. Milady got her first opportunity to put together a webinar series. And so she did that for our fall webinar series for financial education for FEPP, and really was inclusive of partnerships that we have with our nonprofit partners and also our financial institution partners. And those were very well received and very successful. Just as a reminder, we take those webinar series and we always then turn them over, and they're recorded, and then we put them into our YouTube channel. So people that weren't able to see any of these webinars, they're always available on our YouTube channel. And we're also seeing a lot more attention that we're getting through offering those separately from live attendance in the webinars. I continue to help facilitate this holistic approach for the State Board of Education through the Future Ready program. Just as a quick reminder, the State Board has been putting together a subcommittee and their task force that identify the different subcommittees, excuse me. And so as you can see, these are the subcommittees that were identified through the Future Ready task force. And financial education and life skills is one of them, and that we're working together with. There's several people that are here today that are also part of that subcommittee. And the goal is that by the end of February, 1st of March, we'll be able to hand over some recommendations around financial education and life skills. And the hope is to then let the Future Ready Task Force then take the next step and start identifying how and what a graduation requirement might look like, or a requirement of some sort holistically. This is just a little quick snapshot, if you haven't seen it within our bulletins or any of our social media, of the updates for the financial education library. And honestly, this has just been so much fun to watch this little love project of Amy's grow and evolve, and just see the wind that it's taken, to the point where we've now had to deal with some challenges on access to some of these publications because we'll just say, and Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Vancouver. Amy's going to be working with them tonight. She's leaving from Olympia to Vancouver tonight to work with Vancouver. And they ordered how many of these books did they order for their district?
166 copies of a custom list of 8. So they customized a book of the month to 8 titles that match their students' what interests and demographics. And then 166 copies, 6 for each elementary site in their district.
Yeah, it's really fun to see this, and how they've taken these little programs that we've seeded, and then how they've turned them into what works into their districts with lending libraries and just packets of books that they can check out. It's just really been a fun project to watch grow and evolve. Linda, I'm going to turn it over to Linda and let her talk to you about sort of all this increase we've had in just our profile and presence.
Yeah, so our 2025 has been a really good year for just improving on our followers and our interactions. YouTube, Facebook, our newsletter has a really high average for messages being opened. And our Facebook, we've had a huge increase in interactions, so that's really good. And we've been working with DFI to try and get our Instagram back up and running. It's been challenging, but hopefully we're going to get there in the next month or so.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. And then want to thank Jeremy, who's here today, and DFI for their continued commitment to helping us get the social media to get our presence out there, and to just make sure that we've got a good system in place. I think 2026 is going to be even better. And that's all I have. Try to keep it short and sweet and get to our guests.
Okay, let's move on to the Education Committee. Let's Bobby, I think, on the line for this one.
Hi, everybody. Bobby DeGucci, Clover Park School District. Happy to share with you today. At our last education meeting, which was held on November 18th, we talked about about the presentations that happened in New Orleans with the Council for Economic Education, a little bit of some of the stuff that we talked now about the library, and also Lance shared with us that this is the final year of grants, and grants are closing on December 30th. We got some updates on the financial education standards, which we might be hearing a little bit more about. And then there will be an update being sent out as well. We heard more about our spring teachers trainings, including some of the programs that we just discussed. A large part of our presentation we're going to get today as well, as we had our guests from NEFI, Hunter, and Taylor sharing with us a presentation on K-12 financial education and implementation of a graduation requirement. And that was really it. And so unless you have any questions, we can go ahead and move ahead to speaking for our other guests. There's also some more work being done on the way that our fellows group works. I think that encapsulated all of it, Tracy. And Chair Stonier.
Thanks, Bobby. Any questions? Let's give Lynn a second just in case she's running late. And let's move on to the development committee. Eric?
So Eric, I'll be giving it for Eric today.
Thanks.
Yeah. We're, as everybody can see, we're just right on target with our just what our budget is and our budget reporting, and the grants, as you saw earlier, are about 1.1 million out of the 2 million that we're allowed for this final year of the grants. So there's just really nothing that's a surprise. We're just still working out a few of the fiscal reporting systems that allocate our funding based on our COLAs that come from the legislature. So working on a few of those things behind the scenes. But and the one thing we didn't discuss at the exec committee earlier today, but this committee wants to spend some more time over the next year talking about how those the partners can still do their contributions, that we have money that can earmark for trainings and other special programs. They felt that the partners still want to make sure, even though the state has really been generous and supportive over the last few years, we know that that's going to look different next year. So they really want an opportunity to continue getting those contributions from our private partners. And that's it. Any questions? I feel like we're moving right along and I don't see our guest speakers here.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We are moving right along, but we still need to do communications. Do we have Lynn, or maybe is Tracy, are you prepared to give a summary, or should we just wait for
why don't let's do it, Barbara, and I'll go pull from the minutes that we had earlier today and I can follow her reporting.
Okay, I'll give you a minute, Tracy, to review our notes, and I'll go ahead and just jump into the chair's report, and then we'll come back, and after the other two committees, we'll approve minutes at that point in time, just to keep us moving, give our guest speakers a moment to arrive. We are moving along quickly, but I did want to try and preserve as much time as possible for our guests. So in the chair's report, I'm Monica Stonier. I represent the 49th Legislative District down in Vancouver, where that large purchase order of books has come from, not having anything to do with my advocacy, just the team at FEPPP. So I'm looking forward to a list of the teachers who may be using those books so I can send them a little note and cheer them on. And so I will get that from Amy, I'm sure, in the future. In my chair's report, from the legislative environment, happy to entertain questions if folks have them. But the bottom line is just headed into session in the second week of January. Looking forward to all of the challenges that will present us opportunities to learn and overcome and sustain. Our budget outlook is not promising. We are going to be hard pressed to invest in new programs and certainly not even expand the programs that we have. In fact, we're doing a number of budget reduction exercises to see if we do have to make reductions, which is likely, that we do it in a way that is not compounding on impacts that folks living in Washingtonian might be feeling from maybe federal government action or other pressures on our economy in Washington state. So it's going to be a challenging session, no doubt. And I know that many of you who are working with school districts around the state are recognizing that there are those kind of budget tensions at the school district level as well. And this will just be another long conversation about sustainable funding for K-12 public education in our state that gets kind of highlighted this session. So the House and the Senate members gathered last week on Thursday and Friday for committee days, where each committee got together to kind of hear maybe some reports were available, or maybe the chairs wanted to be sure that we have a conversation about session bills that will be coming that maybe folks needed to be a little more socialized to before we get to the short, fast-paced schedule of a 60 short session, supplemental session. And then I just want to address the question that that Will had in the chat. Earlier today, we talked a little bit about ways to make sure that members of the committee have an opportunity to weigh in on policy. I suspect the treasurer's bill in the Senate is one that may be of interest. So I will be sending from my office an email when we get to town in January, and we have an idea of when the bill will be scheduled. And that email will provide for you a step-by-step process for how you can weigh in on a bill. You can go to our legislative website and track it so you get updates when something happens to a bill. You can do this for any bill in the legislature, and that may be one way for you to kind of track the process of the bill. It will also have directions for folks on how you can sign in and support opposition or register concerns about the bill or provide some feedback. I often, when I'm working on legislation, will go into those comments to see what folks have to say. A lot of times the questions and concerns get addressed in the amendment process. And so I like to go through and kind of just double check and make sure we've addressed questions that folks have. So that's one really great tool. The other great opportunity for you on this call is just to reach out to Jesse Johnson directly in the treasurer's office. I know Jesse's working on this bill and tracking it, not just in the legislative environment, but also organizing all of the community energy around the state treasurer's bill. So you've got two opportunities there to kind of register your questions, concerns, or support for this bill, but also any other bill. And I generally do like a how the legislature works and how to track a bill on my social media that we put out through our caucus as well. So there'll be a number of ways for you to receive that information. But for this group in particular, this FEPP general membership group, I will send an email to just the membership here that is very specific. So you can keep an eye out for that when we get the schedule for when the bill will be heard. Seems like that would be a timely opportunity. So that information will come to you. Tracy, any questions for me? Okay, seeing none.
I was
Tracy.
multitasking. Did we address Will's other comment? Did we need to address his final comment? Okay, good. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure
I just covered how I would send an email out and that Jesse
Okay.
can receive questions here as well for a direct
Great.
line to the treasurer's office.
Okay. Jesse, before I move on, did you have any other comments about that before?
I just put the bill number in the chat, but no other comments. We just had a big media availability last week. Thanks, Tracy, for participating in that, and a lot of momentum and excitement for the bill. And like Rep. Stonier said, as soon as we get a word on the hearing in the Senate, then I'll let her know, and we'll work on getting messaging out. So, but would appreciate everyone's support, of course, and thanks for everything that everyone's already done to this point.
Thank you. So I'll go back up to the communications committee report for Lynn. We did have more conversations in depth of the social media strategy that we're going to use going forward. Jeremy's experience is that really Instagram is where we really want to get that up and running and have a higher presence there just to start really being meaningful. And I think at some point the hope is that we can do these little short clips or little reels around pieces of our teacher training so that we could start getting a little bit more presence that is valuable from that content side of it, from the content increasing the content side of it. And then Jeremy, thank you for your help and guidance on that. That's been a big help. It's a little out of my wheelhouse to understand all the ins and outs of those platforms. What Lynn reported was there have been a 571% increase with Reels being most of them watched, I think, for Instagram in general. And so that's why we're gonna prioritize it doesn't look like we're getting a lot of wind under our Facebook, so Instagram is gonna be next. And then we talked about the DECA and the reality fair that we all participated in from FEPP, and then GET enrollment period is open until the end of May. So then we'll move on to the report from Barbara. We can add some of those links in there from OSPI, the updates. Let's see. Barbara gave, does anybody remember exactly what Barbara added? It was about Chris Reichtel being appointed as Monica, would you know?
Yeah, it's like a national educate leaders of the state education institutions. I don't remember the title or the organization, but for folks that are similar to an OSPI or a state board, different states have different structures and that kind of leadership. But this is an association of those state high up in the state level organizations and leaderships in K-12. I believe Barbara also just had a note of recognizing our budget challenges and the efforts that OSPI is working on to try and make sure we're prepared for this next legislative session and the priorities that they want to bring forward.
Okay, and then also the learning standards for mathematics have been released, and there's also a pathway for feedback on that. We'll see if we can come up with a link and pop that in the chat. Okay. And I think that's it. I had emailed our guests to see if they were able to come a little early, and gosh.
Oh, that would be so stressful if you were supposed to present and then have to do it early. If we need to just take a 5-minute break to give them time to set up, then we can do that. I would have a panic attack probably.
We still need to deal with the minutes.
Yeah, we still have to deal with the minutes. We have good of the order, so we have a few more things we can do. But
you can see I'm sweating and panicking myself.
I know. I'm just thinking of them. So, okay, so we're done with the report. So the next step is to go back and approve the minutes, and I have had a chance to go back and review those and have no recommendations for changes. If anybody else does, feel free to come off mute and share that now. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last general membership meeting.
Representative Stonier, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Thank you, Bobby. A second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, all in favor of approving last quarter's meeting minutes? I see Judge Overstreet with her thumbs up. Please say aye or demonstrate in some way your support.
Aye.
You. Any opposition? Any no votes for approving those minutes? Okay, seeing and hearing none of those, our minutes from last meeting are now approved. Thank you.
Can Representative Stonier, if we could give Amy just a minute to talk about an opportunity our team has to develop these webinars for the Econ EdLink.
Oh yeah, that's great. Let's do that. Do we want to just do that in good of the order or trying to follow the agenda?
Entirely up to you. I'm just thinking we're killing time. I don't see them.
I know. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that now because good of the order would be after our presentations and we want to make sure that Amy has a chance to share that. Go ahead, Amy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So both Milady and I were invited to contribute to CEE's Econ EdLink professional development site after submitting proposals that they really enjoyed but weren't able to include in the CEE Educator Conference. So again, just a wonderful reinforcement of our messaging and the approaches that we are taking. We're very reinforced by that. So I'm going to go ahead and drop some links in the chat here for you guys. Tomorrow, actually, I will be presenting a PD called Pop Culture Meets Personal Finance. We're going to talk about trends, toys, and music. Our topics will include K-pop demon hunters and how we can talk about subscription costs, including some fantastic math opportunities. We are going to compare Labubu dolls and Beanie Baby mania of the early 2000s to explore how we can get into market bubbles, but really talk about the resurgence of collectibles for today's youth. Just a friendly reminder, it's okay to collect for joy. And we are also going to be talking about the links between video games, phone games, any games, and gambling for youth. And so that link is there. The second link I have is for next Monday. And rather than myself, Milady, would you like to just talk a little bit about your presentation on Monday?
Sure. Thank you, Amy. So I have the pleasure of presenting for the Econ Ed Link from CEE on the power of empowering students through culturally responsive teaching. I'll be sharing so many resources that are available through our website, vetted, high quality, very inclusive resources where they center the learner and acknowledge that so many of our personal experiences, belief systems, values, community, social engagement influence our financial decision making, and that us as educators have an opportunity to leverage that as well as help our students grow and form their own identity in terms of making personal finance decisions as they grow. So I hope if anyone can make it, would love to see you for all three of the webinars. Thank you so much.
And like she said, there is going to be a third, which I will be dropping in the link in the chat now. On the 10th, I will be giving sort of a second part to our pop culture to policy. This is a refresher of a PD that we gave during our winter. Was it winter 2025? It must have been this winter in January. Yes, earlier this year, we gave a PD on pop culture and policy. So those topics include the Pantone color of the year and the idea that we can monetize color. Does anyone know? Have you heard the scuttlebutt about the Pantone color of the year? No? They chose white this year. And it has been, the internet has been ablaze. So it's a really interesting, I think, discussion.
Wasn't just white. It was like cloud something.
I'm sorry, Cloud Dancer. I'm sorry. It's Cloud Dancer. And as we know, it's really an interesting marketing opportunity. And so when it's such a generic color, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that translates through the year. Last year, just as a friendly reminder, it was chocolate mousse. And so if you saw a lot of deep browns throughout the year, that was the reason why. We talk about March Madness, and we're also talking about climate change and insurance. So those are some of the topics in February. And like Milady said, we would love to see you there. We're very excited for the opportunity to bring these FEPPPs to a national audience. They will live in perpetuity on the Econ EdLink website for on-demand kind of viewing. And Pam, you would know if Econ EdLink is connected with Washington State for clock hour exchange. No, they're not. But in other states, you can get clock hours in exchange for watching the PDs on demand. So yeah, we hope to see you there. And thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, thank you for that report. I'm excited about those. I'm starting to feel like my mental health break from social media is causing me to be really out of the loop on what colors I should be shopping for this holiday season. So I'll have to get
it might be saving you money.
That's right. All right, I'll have to get back to it then. Thank you, Tracy. How are we doing?
Well, this old saying, "Don't let him see a sweat," is coming to mind because I still don't see him, and I haven't. I sent them a note saying we were ahead of schedule. So
okay,
this is the first.
We are scheduled to start with them at what time?
Normally, I'd say we do an hour for usually the first half of the day. We can show more grandkid pictures. No, just kidding.
Oh my gosh, we're that far ahead of schedule?
Yeah, we're almost a half an hour ahead of schedule, and so usually they'd pop in about 15 minutes early. But
okay. Well, I'm very sensitive to people having time to take care of themselves in business. So let's just plan to start at the time that we were planning at noon to give the presenters was that right? The noon time?
They may very well be in earlier. Okay. I mean, because I sent them hey, we're ahead of schedule email. So I just want to be mindful of that as well.
Yeah, so why don't we go ahead and reconvene in at 11:45, and if they're prepared and ready, we can start then.
Okay, that'd be great.
That way, folks can take a stretch break and maybe make a phone call after 1 o'clock. So
okay, thank you.
If folks want to just turn your cameras and mute and just kind of take some time to yourself until 11:45, we will reconvene at that time.